Okay, yeah, we are live. It looks like. So I guess let's hang out for a bit and you know wait for people to show up. Sam, can you just tell me when there's like people in Twitch?
Yeah, it's making me watch a video game ad.
Oh yeah, we love video games here.
Uh-huh. Oh, it's that game that ripped off the Final Fantasy XIV trailer. Say a prayer.
Guess I can't give you admin access right now, Sam, but that's fine.
I'm trying to test my screen share.
Mm-hmm.
Is everyone seeing my screen right now?
I don't.
Just about 4 people. Oh, it's that game that ripped off the Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah.
Do you want me to share for you, Jinjin?
Are you guys not seeing my screen?
I'm not.
No.
Yeah, no.
Interesting. Alright, cool.
Okay, so I guess let's get started. It's like about that time, right? Hello, welcome to the Babycastles residency ___ in residence final presentations. So for the last 3 or so months, we this cohort of really awesome creators have been working on some really cool projects, and we thought it'd be cool to do a little like wrap up presentation / stream to show you all what they've been up to and what they've made. My name's Hyacinth. I have been kind of the coordinator for this cohort, and have been sort of like the Babycastles go-between. Hey Sam, could you mute Twitch on your end, because I think that it's
Just about
bleeding out. One second. So yeah, I think that oh, there we are. So ZZYW, y'all said that you wanted to go first, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So whenever you are ready, take it away. And feel free to introduce like who you are and stuff like that ahead of it also.
I keep hearing some echoes. I'm not sure where they came from. But I'm sharing my screen. Can you guys see?
1 second. Yes. Cool. I'm gonna mute myself now.
All right. So I guess, yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys hear some like repeating stuffs?
Yeah.
From things that was played minutes ago.
Yeah, I think that's Sam. I muted him on my end, so I don't know if he's here right now. But I think that he had his like open Twitch while watching an ad, and it kind of repeated through his audio. So.
I appreciate that the compliments are what's replaying.
think it's good now.
Okay.
Cool. Hyacinth, should I get started?
Yes, go for it.
I think it's yeah.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I was muted. Yes, go for it. I said a whole thing regarding what was going on with Sam, but yeah, take it away.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah, I guess we can get started. Hi everyone. We're ZZYW, and we're showing a website of our art and research collective on the streaming channel right now. So we were originally a computational art and research focused group, and we have made kind of like game-like and research-like things using code, but not like a full-on, like we've never made a full-on narrative-based game. It's always been kind of a dream of ours, and we're really grateful and excited to be part of this residency. So can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, great. Yeah, so on the right hand side of our website, we've made, just very briefly, we've made kind of like JavaScript based like Chrome extensions that kind of scrambles up like current news from like different channels that like represents like almost like opposing ideologies. And then the second project on the right corner, the hazy corner, we've made like chat, kind of like an alternative take on like a classical 80s like chat roulette group chat experiences, except that we use AI algorithm to like contextually like block out certain words to create this like clouded chat room where like it's like impossible for people to like try to perfectly justify themselves. Chen-Ling, can you like scroll down a little bit from the website? And the closest thing that we've ever made to a game, Chen-Ling, can you like scroll down a little bit from the website? Chen-Ling, can you scroll down a little bit?
Yeah, can you see?
Maybe. Oh, okay. Maybe I'm not seeing. Oh, yeah, I'm not seeing like the live stream. Sorry. Yeah. So we've also made like AI bots that like try to mimic like Bauhaus like graphic design styles. The closest thing that we made to a game is something called a thing. It's kind of a research or kind of like a research experiment on kind of, we wanted to see like how far we can stretch the concept of play. So in this game, instead of like thinking about game as like playing the game, we want to like kind of entertain the idea of game as playing with a set of rules of the game. So we kind of made a backend and essentially just made like the most flat like a backend and the most like exposed backend system of a game that we can think about, and like we force our players to like essentially define their rules of the world before they can like join in on like the MMO experience. So back to so those are the kind of like game and research-ish things. We used to think a lot about like the illusion of like user agency and what does it mean to be like working with code. But with Babycastles, we really want to make like a full-on narrative game that's inspired a lot by this kind of historical period in China we grew up in that's called Xiaokang. In like a nutshell, what Xiaokang is this like period in China in the 80s that's somewhat a parallel of like the so-called American dream. So like basically overnight we woke up learning about like the concept of like privatization for the very first time. Like before that day, like all of us were living in kind of like centrally distributed housing. It's like a complete like centrally distributed system. And then one day we wake up, we were told, oh, like things are now like owned by individuals and you have to like work for things, you have to like compete against each other. And essentially, yeah, so the promise behind this movement is that everybody would get like rich, everybody would become like middle class, like so-called like Xiaokang. But the reality is, as you guys probably all know, around the world, it's not like that. It's not everybody getting rich at all. And we wanted to make a game to kind of capture, the three of us are all from like very small cities that rarely get talked about when in the West, when like people discuss about China. So we're from like very small cities up in the north, and we want to just make an indie game that just captures the kind of subtlety of like the general feeling of like smallness in this kind of very overwhelming like and bizarre like historical transformation in China. Yeah, that's
Okay, Sam, I guess let me know if there are more problems.
Cool. Shall we continue? Thank you. Yeah, so I'm gonna show a little bit about the game itself. First of all, the game is not complete. As as Shenzhen and Chanlin said, it's a very new thing for all of us. So starting from picking the right game art style to developing a video game, the technical structure is very different from the technical stuff we did before, and coming up with stories. None of us have are writers, so every aspect of the game is it's an extremely interesting journey, but also a challenge. So we've been doing a lot of work, but still moving relatively slow. But we have done a few different things, and we hacked them together to form a sort of a complete sequence, and and there are still a few bugs in there. The localization has some problems, so you might see some Chinese from time to time. But we kind of like did tried our best to translate everything to English. Yeah, so this is the first scene, and the protagonist showed up in a bus station, and the story is, I'm not sure if we mentioned it. The story is a boy or a girl um, going to a more developed city to look for his or her brother, and his brother has gone to the sea, in quote. Um, So that's the first thing, and it's a bus station. If you walk, and then you meet the staff, and you can talk to the staff, and basically asking about information about the older brother, and the staff basically tells you like I don't really know, like stuff like you said, oh, he has gone to the sea, and stuff says, oh, you're lucky, he might be already being a big boss now and make a lot of money, but the staff doesn't know like the details. So um, so the boy, so I at the end of every conversation, we just switch them to the next scene. It's supposed to be maybe walking into a door or walking into a specific place to switch things, but just for the demo purpose, we just chain them together. So this is the big map. We took the inspiration from Kentucky Route Zero as a main navigation design. So this is where the player goes from one place to another. And then in the formal final version, the player will be constrained to going along the route, but this for testing, so he can walk. Um, so the next place we're gonna go to the street, and then he found a like a fortune teller, a old man, and he talks with the old man looking for more information. And the old man is said a bunch of whimsical and uh, bullshit essentially, and then try to scam him money. And the boy, this is like a fortune telling thing. You pick a number, and then the guy says, um, like your luck is not good. You need to buy something from me, and then scam the boy for money. Um, so I would skip the conversation, but it's basically we're moving on to the next scene. And the boy is trying to maybe find someone to borrow a little bit of money. Um, yeah. And then we're going to the salon. It's a school. The school is kind of like a branch. Like we're there are like this main story, and then there are like branching out stories, just for sort of like a side stories and on regular people about very regular everyday life, kind of like as a reflection and like a snapshot about certain psychological, mental, and economical situation of that China. Uh, this story is a little like a junior high student forgetting his student ID and he got punished in front of the school gate by slapping himself. And then you go up there and then talk with the student about telling him about, oh, like I'm here to look for my brother and do know anything. Basically, that's what the conversation is all about with between the protagonist with anyone. Um, uh, and then we also have this as challenge that we have a few 3Ds. They're kind of like the dark side in quote, or a more like a surreal, like a parallel sort of universe, with all the 2D scenes. And they're more like more weird and surrealistic aesthetics, and they're 3D. And this arcade scene, um, and then this empty, and then if you go walking, and then you see the one machine light up, and then you can play this game. We made a very simple like dodging a game, so you can just we intended to make it really boring and also frustrating from time to time. So I don't know if I can pass it, but if you pass it, then you can see like a leaderboard like basically ranking you against other players. It's a experience that we have a lot. We have a lot in school, in basically everywhere we go, everywhere we do is just gonna be a ranking a sport, like uh comparing ourselves with everyone, all of our peers. So it's like a very iconic experience and phenomenon in China. I mean, even today. Um, the salon, you go to borrow money, and then the girl on the left, which is the boss, basically felt ridiculous and not renting money, and you trying to talk to the other person is like the employee, hair stylist, which is a sex worker. Um, and then you have long conversations. So we spent a lot of time writing the story and script, and it's sort of a very important part of the whole game. The game is really just about stories and narrative. They're work in progress, and we're oh, I think I accidentally quit that scene. Um, sorry. I think my mouse is being hidden by the 3D scene. So I can't click the options. So I can't enter the next thing. But um Yeah, but there's next thing is basically inside the salon, and then the girl cutting a hairstyle for the protagonist. And then they had like a very long chat about their stories. Um, so that's I think that's pretty much it. That's there are more things and a bit more conversations I haven't shown, but this is where we are at. We're planning to continue the development of the game. Hopefully we can uh push it to the a place to sort of a release or have other people play it by the end of the year, something. Yeah, I think that's it. That's our working progress game.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Clap, 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 clap. Yeah, it looks so good. I really like the art style and the way that you're kind of like using photos and converting that to pixel art. It's super cool. Sam, do we have any questions from chat or anything like that? Okay, I don't have chat open. I'm gonna open that up and see.
I don't see any questions.
Okay.
User Carly Marks did say that they wish the text was just a little bit slower so they could follow the sense of humor.
Gotcha. Cool.
But everybody's very complimentary,
Awesome.
and the stream seems to be working pretty well now.
Good. Yeah, sorry about the little hiccup in I'm on a fresh install of Windows because my computer decided to explode before this. Great. Who wants to go next? Fame and King, is that a yes or no?
Yeah,
Sure.
I guess.
Cool. You're like next on my like in my display, so that works. Cool. I'm gonna y'all are a little loud, so I'm gonna turn you down a little bit. But yeah, whenever you are ready, take it away.
Okay.
Hi everyone. My name is Fame. I doing mostly visual in this project. It's called Jit.
Hi, my name is Ging. Ging Chakat. You can call me Gang. And so our project is a live coding project, and I'm doing audio, and Fame's doing the visual.
Is everyone see our screen share fine?
I don't see our screen. Not sure if it's problem on my side.
Is it?
I think I see a stream. There's so
Green
So is the screen working now? Chat screen. Okay.
All right.
So so I guess we kind of maybe want to start with talking about the event that we organize at Wonder Wheel for the residency. It's called Uneven Geography of Sound, and we present 2 shows. So our guest Seminar Shadows and also us. So mostly the idea of this show is trying to kind of even up like the balance between like the geography of sound, that some sound might not be able to resound again, or some sound might not be able to have the mobility that can travel so far like the others. So we are trying to bring the sound that are not quite in the mainstream, or let's say like for our project is it's a tuning system or a sound system that coming from Southeast Asia that you might not usually have a chance to hear it that much, or the sound that cannot travel so far.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add to that?
So like with our guest Seminar Shadow, they perform also like something related to like the tuning for this show. And one thing that I want to mention, like this this show was possible with the support from like like Baby Castle and also the City Crop grants. Yeah. So
Okay. Since we were afraid that we're gonna go over time, we want to kind of present how the show went and how it's looked like. Let's see.
Grinding builds levels, so does snacking at Dunkin'. Collect maple sugar snack and bacon, unlock everything stuffed bagel minis, and experience
Oh, sorry about that.
all right.
Bagels.
Okay, next slide, please. Oh, okay, please go to. Okay. Yes. So let's talk about the project a bit now. So our project is called JIT. JIT is a speculative imaginary electronic ensemble using computer programming and live coding to generate and provide possibility of decolonize Southeast Asia sound culture and its visual representation. And the project itself kind of got the inspiration from this person whose name is Jit Pumisak, who is kind of like a very crucial activist and historian and writer. So and he during like the 50 and 60, but he was seen as a threat and killed by Thai government in 1966. He was only 35 years old, but he already have like so much writing work that much influence for our later generation and mostly kind of like critique of how Thai society should not should be, but um the way that we can go move forward in a better society, I guess.
Mhm.
So just a little bit about Jet. He was born in 1930, and one of the incident that kind of like made him know is when he was a chief editor at Chulalongkorn University journal. Um, so this journal, there's like one volume that's once a year. You need to celebrate the King Rama V of Thailand, and on the cover and everything, it have to be all related to the king and all related to the royal family and kind of like mostly praise them. But for that year that Jit was a chief editor, he kind of completely did the opposite. In the cover, he just used kind of abstract art as a cover, and inside they were just like writing that kind of like critiques the society or critique like the society back in the days. And so it was kind of like really radical. And so what happened is when he went up to the stage to give the speech and kind of like have explanation of why he did this thing this way,
Mhm.
he got thrown down from the stage by some of students that were really angry, and he have to be hospitalized. And also the university punish him and kind of like um, do not let him back to study for another 2 years.
Mm.
And that's when he actually wrote an essay that criticizing traditional Thai music in 1954. And that's the essay that I was really inspired from to start kind of like all of this project and all of this digging into um, different sound and traditional Thai music. And one thing in the essay that kind of like inspired me the most, probably like the way he talked about how he speculate how Thai music could evolve with like indigenous knowledge in mind. And also he was talking about how traditional Thai music folks are actually forget about their roots, that there is this shared culture between Southeast Asia country, and because of the nationalistic ideology it was kind of forgotten. And they kind of also forgot about folk music that are actually indigenous and not influenced by others, but they are looked down to that, and they also doesn't really appreciate it that much, and that's become kind of a problem. Do you have anything to share or add to that?
Um, so the main article that we inspired from is called หลุมฝังศพของดนตรีไทย which is also mean like the cemetery of a Thai traditional music that we put on the blog. Is all in Thai. We're trying to translate during the residency time, but it's take forever. We will do that at some point. You want to talk about like the arrested
Okay, yeah.
incident?
So what happened after that 2 years? So he allowed back to the school and he graduated and he start his master degree. But still, the government still see him as a threat and send spy to see him and kind of like abuse him. So he decided to flee and join the Communist Party in the forest in 1965. And he was killed in 1966 because there was kind of a civil war between the Communist Party and Thai government back in the days. Yeah, and it's unbelievable that most of his time, most of his young adult time is actually spending in the prison, and he still wrote so many books that are really valuable and um kind of like influential for the 60s
Yeah.
and 70s. So he did die on in the 66, but his work and himself kind of reborn during the 70s when we have all the protests against the military government. But also that he and his work die again by the end of like the 70s because the political crackdown is really harsh. And but however he kind of like reborn again pretty recently, and his work and his name kind of like circle around younger generation now.
Yeah, and to unfold that into our project is he inspire us in a way that like this iteration specifically is like the thing that happened in the past is revolving and happen again right now in Thailand, like a lot of abuse with like government and like it authority to people is happening in Thailand, and a lot of like young generation that did protest like got put in a jail. So we wanted to connect kind of like the history in the past and with the current story right now that happening. So like as we mentioned, like Pumisak was a writer, so a lot of his material is writing. So we start like thinking of like the visual to like bringing like his writing into like this visual and put into visual. We select like many sentence from like his writing piece that like really relevant like today, like all the rules and regulation or like control, or like how like we leave like some of the interesting culture like disappear. So like play with like those idea, and kind of like circle through like the writing and play with the typography.
So also um uh, uh, let's talk about the sound that I use a bit. So there's two kind of sound culture that I use in this particular iteration. So one of them is I kind of learned the the tuning system that exists in Thai oboe copy 9. So I'll play you the sound. Yeah. And so I learned that tuning system and trying to divide it and learn each note in the frequency so I can retune whatever synthesizer or the music program that I use to be able to play that sound. And as you might notice, so actually down here all of these letter is actually say the note in the Western way, so sol la ti do, and which is like um for some reason, and even the way I learn Thai music now today, we somehow use that Western system to learn Thai music, and a lot of the a lot of that knowledge kind of like lost it because of like during the Thai creation of the creation of Thai nation, it kind of like we want to be westernized, so we start to ban Thai music sometime, and we start to have to we have to be much more international, so we have to use this kind of Western system to say the note the Thai musical sound. But I um so I did this kind of a really short diagram so you can see that I I also found that there's a few things, few Thai note way to say it that I found, and which is likeต่อแต่ตรือตรอย, that which, to be honest, I'm not an I'm still I don't feel like I'm an expert about that yet, but this is so far what I've been having now. And so to translate that into um our live coding project, so I'll play some of the excerpt that I use this sound. So yeah, so the sound that I just play is also reflect to the iteration that we were talking about like using the letters or the sentence that coming from books and essay. Uh, uh, okay. So another sound that I did use in this iteration is Pakakayor or current Karen community in Bangkok, western of Thailand. So they are minority and marginalized community that were kind of forced to leave their home in the forest because um one of the thing is the border issue, like the nation state that kind of like make them become a countryless community, so they don't have their own country to live in. But also um with like a new laws that it say that it's protect the forest and it's protect like our resources, but also it kind of um abuse those community as well, because of that law they cannot be in their home, they have to get kicked out. So I just want to be able to kind of bring that sound and have and let everybody to have a chance to hear that sound here in this iteration as well. And also and here's that sound that we reimagine and use it in our work. Okay. uh, okay, do you want to
Yeah, so another another part that is connected to the current situation is the word that we use a lot in the show is like this word is pronounced kondi, which is like mean to like good person. So like this signage got put like last year, like around like the protest area, kind of like on this container is kind of like separate like other protester with like the area that they don't want like people to go in, and then put like this ban signage up that is say like the king's soldiers and police of the people, parenthesis good people, join force and protect your and important places. So like basically like they're trying to label themselves as like, or like government and it authority trying to label themselves as a good person. So like we kind of sarcastically like use that word to contextualize like the idea and give people idea of like what we are talking about exactly. And we decided to like use another material, which is like the archive video and also like the video clip from like social media that have like violence of like the current situation that happening in Bangkok. And we kind of like glitch and make it like blurry to create the idea of like is how like the media kind of like shut it off or like make it like blur or hazy to when it like pass it to like other people. Some of the archive is the factory where they produce like weapon, and some of it is like from like school event from the archive that we can find. And we combine like those like archive footage with like also typographic on top of it is like another aspect of like this visual for this iteration. We have a lot more experiment, but like we just did like some part to show you all and get some idea. For the sound, can also start using like the archive sound to add into like this iteration. So you want to talk about it?
Sure. So the archival sound that I use, so one part of it was coming from the radio news, and more like a radio propaganda actually. It's a military propaganda radio that were broadcasting on October 6, 1976, which it were there was an incident of the massacre of the Thai university student that were protesting, and it was really violent. And so I was using that propaganda radio kind of as like a reminder of how distorted the media is sometimes and how they can incite the violence. So I think for the time's sake, I'm just gonna play the already processed archival sound with the visuals. I think that's it for for us.
Yeah, I just wanted to say like thank you so much, Babycastle, to like help us like shaping a lot of this and suggest us and help us to get the grant and we be able to make the show happen. So yeah, we really grateful to be part of the community. Also like all the fellow, like we had like really great like catch up and conversation that inspire us to also like research and do more of this, and it turns out like this, and we will keep like this project going for like the next iteration. So that's pretty much everything. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Sorry if we go over time.
No, you're fine. Thank you so much. Yeah, this I got to see the show when it was performed, and it was super good. And like yeah, knowing the context behind it and stuff like that is really like makes it really meaningful. Sam, do we have any questions from chat or anything like that?
No questions from the chat. But yeah, that performance looks so cool, and I was so mad that I was working that day and nobody wanted to take my shift. Just to put that energy out in the universe. All right.
Cool. So, Zoe or Sarah, who wants to go next?
I can go.
Cool. Yeah. Switching over to you. Take it away whenever you're ready.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Huh?
I just said yes.
Okay, sweet. Okay. Can we all see my presentation? I should have asked all my questions in one go. All right, well, huh? Okay, so I have my little presentation. Hi, I'm Zoe Scruggs. I also go by Farmer Zoe when I make music. I'm a painter and a musician and a farmer, but the things we're going to be focusing on today is my music and art practices, my painting practice. So this is Doing Too Much, a tale of 2 mediums, 2 residencies, and 2 proposals. Let's go. Oops. Okay, 2 residencies comes from the fact that I started 2 residencies around the same time, one at Bunker Projects where I am like physically located in Pittsburgh, and I'm working collaboratively with my friend Lou Tandon, and then this residency with Babycastles, which has been remote. The 2 mediums is painting and music, which I have represented by a big painting and one of my songs that's on Spotify, and 2 proposals is the story we're going to get into. Also, feel free to be like, you're talking very fast because I just get excited. Initial proposal. So when I applied to Babycastles, I had like a chunk of 3 things that I wanted to tackle. So we had finished an album release on Spotify or a short EP. Then I wanted to like think about ways to release music and make money off of music that doesn't just rely on Spotify and Apple Music. I think that was inspired by like finding different co-op based music platforms. There's like Resonate and another one that I actually have a page on that I'm forgetting. And then grow my music production content on different social media platforms. And I came to this just because I feel like don't really know how to go about talking about myself as a musician, where like as a painter, because I went to school for it and have an academic training, and like how I'm supposed to talk about that, my music practice feels light years behind my painting practice, and in that way I feel like I'm just like not fully representing myself in either. So I saw these ways of like experimenting with putting out music and growing my education content as a way to like mend that, but I don't think that that's actually like upon reflection doesn't make sense after I like really started to sit on it for a long time. I do have like bits of music because I basically mixed and mastered the songs that I wanted to put out, but also because I was starting 2 residencies at the same time, was like, I want to do these things justice. So I'm gonna slow down in like how I'm trying to roll things out, and these things don't need to come out on a timeline I'm not comfortable with. And a big theme of this presentation and it being titled Doing Too Much is that I just need to like stop trying to figure out an entire career's worth of problems in the span of like 3 months. But I'm gonna share one of the songs that I was gonna put out because you might not be able to hear it for a little bit. That was one of the songs. Did anybody hear that? I'm just checking back in. We're hearing it. Okay.
This is Sam. The stream's a little bit behind, but I can hear you talking. It hasn't gotten to the end music yet.
Okay.
You're coming on through great.
Thank you for the feedback. I'm gonna pop back into the presentation. I did have an attempt at, well, I didn't have an attempt. I just did do some like, can you still see the screen if I'm in this different tab?
Yep,
I do.
we do. We see it.
Okay, this was from, I have a document from a class that I taught with my friend and collaborator Lou Tandon, where we like taught a class on how to use this music production software, Soundtrap. And we made like a variety show where we picked a topic and all the like teens in the group could come up with like an audio response. And so I just wanted to share like a little bit of my attempts to like dive into the education side, even though I still don't think that that angle was resolving my internal problems. So one of the students picked the theme and they picked the Wiggles. So
Wiggles are an Australian children's music group formed in Sydney, New South Wales in 1991. Since 2013, the group members an Australian indie rock band active throughout the 1980s. And the band was founded in 1979 by Field brothers, Paul, lead vocals, John, rhythm guitar and vocals, and Kevin, lead guitar.
there was a Michael Finnegan remix that one kid was very excited about, so I'm gonna play a little bit of that too. Yeah, so that was our Wiggles theme variety show. I just had to share that. Yeah, so that was that's what I was doing when I initially started the residency and was diving into my initial proposal. But then there was a turning point where basically I just like almost every single day for 2 weeks just was like feeling really like uneasy about the split between my music and painting practice, and a lot of people around the same time were like telling me things that they were kind of like, maybe you should pour more into music, maybe you should pour more into painting. So I was just like trying to figure out what I can do to like get people to get that I want to do both. So on this day, me and my friends and collaborator, Lieutenant, we sat down, we wrote out our big goals. This is my sheet. And basically the thing that I got out of this activity was that all my painting goals, despite liking the process of painting, all my painting goals were based in like outside validation and institutional recognition, because those are the things that give you access to resources to continue painting. And all of my music goals were based in like collaborative projects that I would be excited about being on the team and having the experience of doing the project. Like in the music goals, I have score a film, do a like score a fashion show, things where I'm like adding into somebody else's idea. On the goals for the painting side, it was like get gallery representation, which is something that I wouldn't enjoy the process of doing, but is somehow a goal of mine. So just like a lot of recognizing where certain desires to perform both practices a specific way are coming from. So this is just a zoom in on like the goals if you want to read through my thoughts and anxieties. So basically, like through that conversation, we arrived at a discussion about like how to make our painting show feel like a music experience and feel like when you show up to a concert or like when an artist is doing an album rollout, like Billie Eilish has like vinyls and like t-shirts sold at Target and like it changes her aesthetic and like has certain like press done around the rollout of a music release, which creates a world around the project. And that's like something that I don't see happening in painting, which I feel like was also some of the places where my desire to like be a part of a team that's building a world were coming from. So we arrived at proposal 2. So the project that like me and my friend came up with that I had shifted to like ask Babycastles with support in is like this 3-phase painting show rollout, where the first phase is like having our painting show that has our music, our recorded music playing in the space. The second part is like this month of October, since we just had the show on the physical show in October 1st, is to like write music for a performance for like a reactivation of the space on the 5th, because here in Pittsburgh there's a First Friday where there's like an art crawl where people come out to go to galleries specifically. And then phase 3 is to create an online experience that like is documenting those first 2 phases and also like creating like basically a visual album of the songs that we've created and using the painting exhibition as like a set for the music. So I have some documentation of phase 1. As I said, it just happened on Friday. We went for like, we made a lot of quirky curatorial decisions. When we first came up with this idea, we wanted like a really extensive installation to be happening in this space, but basically like there was a mold problem at our residency and we just like lost 2 weeks of work time in the space because we had to seek housing somewhere else. But luckily our show still came together, and with like salon style hanging and like just doing weird vertical stacking of works or pairings of work, we were still able to like let the works be the thing that transforms the space instead of bringing in additional like wallpaper or like props. We have bouquets of flowers, but we had just like a really large plan that we had initially. And then I'm also gonna play a little bit of the music that was playing in the space, because that also did something in transforming the space. When the music wasn't off, the gallery just like felt really cold, and like how I'm used to a gallery feeling, but because I feel like our music is super like engulfing and atmospheric, I feel like it helped transform and take up space. Somebody who came through was like, you guys have your 2 separate like painting practices, and then the music is like filling in the gaps in between the work, which I thought was just like a really great poetic moment. Sick. I also in the like trying to define different ways of like making the show interactive or like marketing it differently than I feel like I see other like fine art shows happening is I've been doing just like reels where I'm like kind of vlogging about the show. I'll just play this 6 seconds. So just like a way that I feel like I'm like a lot of this is me putting on like different characters and I'm like that's marketing Zoe who like is like or like media influencer Zoe who like received her PR package about the show Maybe We Can Rest Here and is like vlogging the experience of going to the opening night or something. Just to like play with the world building as and like that type of leaning into like a different side of myself is really helping me figure out like where I actually want to place the way that I'm talking about my work. No, I don't. Okay. Okay, so about the show, it was called Maybe We Can Rest Here. We wrote a source text. I'm just gonna read this blurb from our show text. The show's title, Maybe We Can Rest Here, is taken from the two collaborators' own source text around an alternate universe where the conception of time is built around practicing both music and painting. Scruggs and Tandon are in constant conversation about the absurdity of trying to be both Lil Nas X and Alex Katz in the time constraint of a 24-hour day. In the world cited in the source text, there's no concept of scarcity and no capitalist restrictions on time. Maybe no one has to worry about achieving mastery in order to have their needs met. Maybe We Can Rest Here as a fuck you to the fact that we worked every day for 5 weeks straight leading up to the show. So just like leaning into my many contradictions and like how I arrived at the title of this presentation being Doing Too Much is like I'm writing about this alternative world that I want to live in where the conception of time is literally based around being able to do these two practices on my own time. And I'm like doing too much and like trying to pull it off in a short amount of time. And like literally the same night that we write that, I like cry for like 3 hours because I'm like, I haven't had any Zoe time. I've just been pouring into this show. So then I started reading these books. I bought both of these books, Do Nothing and How to Do Nothing. One is about like labor history in America, and the other one is like kind of about like the attention economy of like social media or whatever. So now accepting a slower timeline for like figuring out these music and painting contradictions in my practice. Yeah. I think that I can stop there because I don't want to give a 40-minute presentation. I had our inspirations for the next 2 phases, which basically comes down to roller coasters and like one-shot like music videos and split screens for like 2 different worlds and finding our like family members who do painting and music. But yeah, thank you for listening to me go off about life.
Awesome. Thank you so much. There we go. Awesome. Thank you so much. It's super cool. And yeah, I really like your music. I think I've expressed that before, but
Thank
for
you.
viewers. Yeah. Clap. Yeah. Super cool project. And I'm excited to see the next few iterations of it. I just logged onto Twitch for the first time. Looks like we don't have any questions from chat, but you know, if anyone in chat wants to ask questions to any of our presenters, like, you know, throw them in and we could, you know, maybe do some Q&A, like just in a block at the end. So yeah, Sarah, would you like to go? Because I know that that
Yes.
so you know wants to go last.
Oh, I'm
So
also ready, but you can.
okay, yeah. Any? Would you rather go now or?
I can go.
Okay, cool.
Is that fine? I'm trying to try to keep it shorter than some of the other ones, which might be helpful. I don't know if anyone's getting unless we want to take a quick break. Is anyone getting sleepy?
Yeah, I got home at 5 a.m. this morning, so I'm doing great.
Okay.
But
a humble brag.
Yeah. No, I run on coffee and spite. What? How do we think we're doing, Sam? I have no sense of time, or how are we doing, chat? Feel like now I can actually see y'all. So
I think we're doing good. What is it? It's like 4:26.
yeah, it's like 4:26.
I feel like if we like
if we could wrap by 5, that'd be fine. But
Yeah.
like I'm
Okay.
I'm fine to keep going. So yeah, let's
I mean, yeah, no hard time limit.
yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
I'm gonna share my screen. So my name is Sarah Drake, and I am an artist and animator currently in Los Angeles, California. And I tend to be pretty games adjacent, so I'm kind of excited to be in this context, but I mostly make weird conceptual art that sometimes references games and game culture. But in my work, I'm interested in exploring our relationship to the future or futurity. In particular, how the stories we tell ourselves about the future or the worries or aspirations really inform how we live together in the present. This can be a question of how a future becomes historical, or how the personal daily rituals we do to ward off or create certain futures inform our daily actions, or when groups of people come together, for better or worse, to instantiate a collective desire for a certain future. And more pertinent to my project for this residency, when our super popular futures often too good to be true, and what happens with that. So for the past year, I've been researching independently and creating work and writing around the current increasing development and use of lethal autonomous weapon systems by nation states. These technologies are often referred to as laws. Maybe you've seen that acronym before. And they are considered by current human rights advocates and other researchers as a potential new suite of weapons of mass destruction. So a lethal autonomous weapon can be something as simple as a landmine is sometimes considered a lethal autonomous weapon, a small computer set up somewhere running without human intervention, performing a task or automating some sort of lethal force. Or it can be something as complex as a satellite constellation targeting system that is communicating with weapons on the ground and helping them pick which targets to go after. And for my residency in particular, I'm working on a piece of writing that's still very much in progress and a series of sculptures that are also in progress, which I'm going to share. And this is a graphic from the Stop Killer Robot campaign, which, if you're interested in this stuff, following this talk, they keep pretty great data on which countries are participating in the defense industry and including AI in their weapon systems. And they are currently advocating for a treaty at the international level to cease building them, which isn't going so well, but I'm really glad they exist and they're great to read. So I wanted to start by sharing like a little excerpt from the essay I've been working on that might help contextualize some of my thinking for my project. And it might get a little goofy for a second. It's time to push the kill switch on the killer robot. Visions of human-like murder machines fire rampant in our futures. In the US, we are inundated with fictions of metallic chimeras gone rogue, spawned from the excesses of technological progress. These figures are long-standing expressions of anxiety towards powerful technology run amok, apathetic to human life. And often I would say, like, when you see the killer robot evoked, it's kind of become pastiche to the point of just becoming like shorthand for a type of future, usually a dystopic one. But lethal autonomous weapons are not some faraway dystopia, but a present-day crisis. AI and machine learning are increasingly utilized in the globalized weapons industry, with the promise of increasing efficiency by taking human emotions, stress, error, and labor out of the equation of lethal force. Private tech companies and military powers often justify the use of such weapons as by their supposed ability to make war more humane. The US loves doing this, by the way. But what is efficiency when it comes to war, illegal occupations, or border policing? Laws are also prone to errors, biases, and poor capacity for judgment at planetary scale. Without democratic oversight and accountability, or international treaties to govern them, laws occupy an unchecked extension of state power. The perpetual retelling of the anthropomorphic killer robot story is starting to occlude our ability to glimpse and, by extension, form political awareness around the increasing automation of lethal force. So this is kind of my starting place for some of my sculptures and writing. And I wanted to show, like, I'm sure you're familiar with some of the robots on my little slide here. This is like how we've come to know this figure or like mythical figure in our culture. And this is how the US government has imagined killer robots. And I really like the contrast of these images. So this is the official seal of the Algorithmic Warfare Cross-Functional Team, which was started by the US Department of Defense in 2017, I think, and was codenamed Project Maven, which maybe you're familiar with if you follow Google, who got this contract. And this was how they imagined robots participating in warfare. And Project Maven was a system to use AI and machine learning to sort through all of the many hours of video footage that our US drone program takes to make a better targeting system so we could better identify humans on the ground that we wanted to murder on behalf of the state. It's a really crazy image. So alongside my writing, I've been kind of thinking about the ways that we make cultural symbols around our military technology, and what cultural forms kind of we create to aestheticize and kind of fetishize defense technology in our society. So I've been kind of thinking about how do we kind of take contemporary lethal autonomous weapon systems and kind of force them into these known cultural forms. And would that be interesting, and would that spark a conversation? So I started looking into the aeromorph community online, which is an offshoot of the furry illustration communities online. And they are often a cultural form which depicts an amalgam of machine, human, and or mythical beast. And they're most often depicted as like a hyper-feminized, very sexual fighter plane of some sort. And they are often an uncritical and somewhat nostalgic homage to technology, military technology, that's been completely removed of its context and its intended use. And it's also tends to be not only like this loving recreation of these technologies based on looks alone, but also quite ironic and over the top. Here's some more examples that I thought were pretty great from the particular community that I've been participating in. Sometimes the aeromorph becomes other types of transportation devices and more abstract, like this very like busty blimp. Sometimes they don't necessarily have genitalia. They're more about being sleek and human-like. And sometimes they're just very to the point and very literal and made out of 3D stock assets. The aeromorph also, I would argue, as ties to the way that animals and animal faces were painted on the front of fighter planes that was made incredibly popular during World War II. So I am going to talk more about some of the sculptures I've made. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the process of making them, and then I'm going to go through each one of the main sculptures and show them and kind of talk through why I chose which technology to do. But basically, in the researching of this issue, I've basically been weeding out certain technologies, mostly with a US lens, that I find particularly novel or interesting in explaining the capabilities of these technologies, and then forcing them into the aeromorph form and turning them into these super sarcastic, super sexual 3D printed action figures, pun intended. And they're quite big. I will show some at the end. And then they get painted with this really disgusting fake metal that is made to represent like hot exhaust pipe on the back of them. So the first one I chose was the Harrop drone. This is maybe the most important one for where we're at right now in terms of what lethal weapons are looking like in the world today. But this is, you've probably heard about it actually. I feel like this is becoming more known and people are reporting on it a lot more in the mainstream news. But this is an Israeli drone made by the Israel Aerospace Industries. It is a loitering munition, which means it can fly over designated areas and then hunt for targets. And then once it's out of juice, it can like fly back home, recharge, and keep doing this process. And is often launched out of the back of a truck launcher, like on the left image there. And this is most likely the first lethal autonomous weapon that's been used in combat, originally in 2016 by Azerbaijan against Armenians, and is still currently being used right now in that conflict. And they basically are suicide bombers without a person inside. And then my version of it is a very cheeky, very excited drone. And then these get turned into these 3D printed sculptures that then go through this finishing process. So you can kind of see they're in process right now, but I have to like make key shapes and they're printed in different bits and pieces and sections, and then they get recombined at the end to create action figures. The next one that I think is super interesting is this is another type of aerial drone. This is a US drone called Kratos. It's a combat drone. And this just competed in a DARPA project called Skyborg. And it's basically a bunch of companies were competing to create these AI co-pilots that would fly alongside US pilots to be like in addition to that plane's efforts. And they've since been retired. And now these, which I think is really interesting, these are now used currently to train pilots how to fight against an AI piloting vehicle. So there are ongoing training sessions where pilots compete head-to-head against these little drones. So much so that they've started showing up when they fall out of the sky or get blown up by a human pilot. They've been kind of showing up on the beaches of Florida, and you can read very silly news articles about very perplexed citizens wondering what's going on when they see these really scary drones making their way into beaches. But this image can kind of give you a pretty good sense of the scale. They're actually quite small because they don't need any of the life support systems maybe that a person would, and they can run on a lot less fuel. And I've also been staging them in various ways. The Kratos one is still this one that I showed earlier. And part of this process was kind of trying to represent each major key nation state playing in this game. This is the SGR-A1, which maybe some of you know about. It is an autonomous sentry gun that is made by Hanwha Aerospace or South Korea, and it is meant to replace human guards in the Korean demilitarized zone. There are reports that it has been deployed, but I haven't really been able to find good fact checking on that, so it's a little hazy whether or not these are up and running just yet. And it's unclear what degree of autonomy they're currently running on. A lot of these early autonomous systems do have the option for a human to intervene. But another thing that's interesting about this one is that it purportedly has thermal cameras on board and machine learning that can read gestures of surrender and issue audio commands about for potential people crossing the border before it shoots at them. Here's my version. And what the sculpture is kind of looking like at the moment. This one is made my list because this is the first, to the best of my knowledge, nuclear AI-enabled weapon that's being built right now. This is the Russian nuclear Torpedo. It is autonomous in that once it's launched, it can navigate its way to its target no matter where it is launched. So if it's on a ship and being launched, it can navigate no matter where that ship is at. This is maybe the scariest one on the list. And its main goal is to target coastal port cities vital to trade and cause, blow up in the ocean and then cause a mega radioactive tsunami. And Russia is currently building these. This is the US's response to that, called the Sea Hunter. This is a fully autonomous patrol boat and anti-submarine hunter. Like many US technologies, this was originally part of a DARPA competition in 2016. And it is currently doing tests in the Pacific Ocean and performing autonomously to make sure it's up and running. And this is being made for the US Navy. So I've positioned these two together. They go together. And what the sculpture is looking like as of this morning. And this is the last one on my list right now, although I'm hoping to make 6 of these. I've left China off the list as of now, which is unfortunate. This is the Ripsaw M5 by Texatron Systems, which is a fully autonomous electric tank currently being tested for the US Army. They are both slated for military applications and unfortunately for crowd control. And what's interesting about this one, which is like, there's a lot of other systems that I've seen that kind of fall into this category, where basically it is a small constellation of drones that can all talk to each other, and they have different degrees of mobility and different surveillance technologies on board. So if you look on the image on the left, this tank houses other smaller robots that pop off to do different things, and they all report back and they can coordinate together. And this is something that's been proposed in a few areas. And I've seen a few other projects like this, but this is kind of the most interesting one. This was also weirdly American, debuted on a reality television show, which was like a show where two brothers would make military grade technology in their garage, and you can watch them make this, which is very strange. So I've reimagined that one as having these like deployable sex toy robots. It's kind of a front to their masculinity. And they look like this. And then maybe I can just show what those look like in scale. So like the actual models, if anyone's interested in looking at me, I'm not sure, look like this. They're pretty big and made out of nylon. So they're pretty robust and not particularly fragile. Yeah. Any questions?
1 second. Yeah. Anyone have questions from chat? I'm not looking at chat again because
It's okay if you don't.
freeing up bandwidth. But yeah, if any come up, you can post them. Sam can take note of them, and we can ask at the end. Is kind of what I think we're doing now.
Fine.
Yeah, that's super cool. I didn't. I've seen a couple of them, but like I like the finishing that you've been doing on them. That's the first time that I'd seen any of that.
You can see them collecting.
Yeah.
They're pretty gross. That's
yeah.
pretty weird to live with like big sex robots in your house.
Yeah.
It's like now people are starting to come over and I'm like, oh.
Oh no, I didn't think about this.
This is me now. Yeah.
Well, awesome. Cool. So I assume that no questions came in, Sam, right? God, the lighting in this room is horrible now. Oh no, it's my face. So Soon, are you ready to go?
Yes.
Cool.
Should I try? Can I try to share my screen again?
Yes. Yeah, give it a shot.
Okay.
And if not,
I'm just gonna try to like generally share. Can you see my screen?
no.
No?
Yeah. Can you try like streaming it at a lower resolution or something like that?
Oh, okay. Oh, it's at the frame rate, maybe? Okay.
Yeah, it's still not doing great. If you want, you could just send me your slideshow and I can put it up.
Oh, okay. I sent it to you in the chat.
Cool. Let me. I'm gonna mute this so I can pull it up.
I don't know why it's not working.
Yeah, I don't either. Going to paste this. Not that. And yeah, my screen is black for a reason, just so that y'all don't see. I don't think I have anything that I wouldn't want y'all seeing, but like I think I just have my email up and stuff like that. So, there.
Wait, are you showing your screen?
Yeah, I'm going to. Yeah, now I am. So feel free to take it away whenever you would like.
Okay, so basically, I'm going to be oversharing a lot throughout this presentation. My name is Sonia or Sihan. You can call me either one. Sonia is probably better if you're not Korean because you won't be able to pronounce it. But anyways, I use any pronouns except it. I'm an artist. And wait, are you sharing your screen? I can't see it. Oh, sharing it to the stream. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I can yeah, I think that would be helpful because like the stream is like
Yeah, the stream's way behind where y'all are at. So yeah, I just shared it to the Discord.
Okay. So I wrote this scene for my residency. And it's called Our Farming Games Communist. And so back in 2014, I wrote a zine called Transcendental Experiences Through Video Games. And could you see the second slide, please? And so this zine that I wrote, like, oh my God, so long ago, looks at like how we project our egos onto video games, how video games create parallels with existing social constructs, and how the trajectory of our psychic experiences are shifted through the introduction of video games. And so this new zine, Our Farming Games Communist, is semi-autobiographical, semi-research, looking at farming games, specifically Rune Factory and Harvest Moon series, and connecting my experience of playing it to my relationship to my father. So basically, like, about my daddy issues. And then next slide, please. And so I wanted to start this presentation with this quote from my dad. I interviewed him about like his life and about like communism, and he said this thing that I thought was kind of funny. He said, "I thought communism could be a unique solution of the troublesome capitalism." And those are his exact words, and I just thought it was funny. Um, so yeah, next slide, please. So I'm gonna be reading to you guys an excerpt from my zine, and I start off with talking about my dad. So my dad taught me how to eat purple clover flowers one summer of my childhood. It was somewhere hot and sticky in a grassy field in Seoul, Korea. I'd pluck out the petals, then I'd bite the white parts that were attached to the crown of the stems. Carefully avoiding grassland bugs that zigzagged around the petals, I would chew on the petals as if the plant sugars would fill me up. They tasted like morning dew with a hint of honey. In high school, I visited my dad in Korea, and one day he had a half-chopped onion on the dashboard of his car. Next slide, please. I asked him why that was there, and he told me he used it as air freshener for his car. It made more sense when my grandmother left orange peels around the house as an air freshener because the citrus peels were fragrant. Next slide, please. The tangerine juices would dissipate into the air, leaving a tangy scent as my grandmother peeled them. She would scatter them on the floor like a sea of lotus flowers sitting on a lake's surface. In the winters, I would go back to Korea for vacation when clementines were in season. My grandma would pierce their skin with her nails, making them bloom, tossing them around the heated vinyl imitation wood-covered floors of our villa like a flower child. The heated floors would bring out the aroma of the peels. Villa, or villa in Korean, the name's more aspirational than idyllic from the Western interpretation, where Korean villas would be for low-income housing rather than vacation homes for the rich. So next slide, please. So this is like an image of like the villa that I used to live in. It's called 완성 villa, which is it basically means like completed villa in Korean. But then I wrote like 미완성 villa as like a kind of like way to laugh at it, because like if you put like 미완성, then it's like incomplete villa, because that's kind of how it felt like living there. And then next slide, please. And then I also thought it was like really interesting kind of like seeing like public housing projects in America for the first time, because they're also built with these like same red or like brown bricks. And in Korea, like they're also built with like the same materials. And so I was just like thinking about how like even though like class looks so different in America and Korea, how similar it looks also in terms of like the architecture. And yeah, I just like felt very nostalgic kind of in a way. There were some days where I felt like my dad's relationship to plants felt adventurous and exciting for a city kid like me. We would be walking around a neighborhood in Montreal with my sister, and he would pick some plants that resembled berries. Next slide, please. He would pluck it from its stem and put it in his mouth without hesitation. Each motion felt natural, familiar. He made a sour face of pure revulsion as if he just ate a whole pack of lemon seed or lemona. We would take turns eating it after the shared shock value, for the shared shock value, and wash down the sting with some hot cocoa. In these moments, I felt the remnants of his past that I never got to witness, but would bear testament from his alcohol-fused stories of his childhood. The evidence would bear in these moments where my limited understanding would be enacted and lived in. I remember the first time we time traveled together when I was about 19 years old in 동대문 광장시장. Next slide, please. And just FYI, these next few slides might make you guys feel hungry. So sorry about that. Um, perhaps this was when my dad felt it was appropriate for me to hear such stories. He took me to drink makgeolli, Korean rice wine, and eat mukdujang, mung bean pancakes. The long halls of the market would be sizzling with chatter of the elderly bargaining, colorful stalls of plastic produce, street food, and hiking clothes, weathered by labor and early mornings. A familiar and nostalgic smell of tteokbokki, 전, hotdog, with dizzying containers of 식혜. So next slide. These are like little like kimbap. They would be called like mayak kimbap, which is like mayak is like drugs, like so they're like kind of like drugs. Even though there's like no drugs in Korea like that. Next slide. So tteokbokki and 막걸리. Next slide, please. And hot dog. It's so yummy. Next slide, please. Um, oh, from the little time I spent with my dad throughout my life, we would have moments like these where I felt a dissonance between my city upbringing juxtaposed to his rural upbringing. I would feel the lived histories of Korea's rapid urbanization through our contrasting relationship. Grandma told me how Seoul, and more specifically Chungmuro, was mostly farmland 50 years ago. Chungmuro is the area where my dad's family moved to about 50 years ago from Jeollanam-do, South Jeolla province. And Chungmuro is basically like this area in Seoul, which is kind of like Midtown now. Like there's all these like skyscrapers and like Bitcoin buildings or whatever. Anyways, I would always refer to my paternal grandmother as 충무로 할머니 or 충무로 grandma, calling her by where she lived rather than her real name. Her real name always sounded 촌스러워 or awkward and tacky, a shared generational feeling of shame that comes with reckoning names that were not given to our grandparents for patriarchal legacy, but to end it. So on the slide, I wrote my grandma's name in the middle, 신금자 in Korean, and then 금자 like in traditional Chinese characters. And then on the bottom, it says Suzuko, which is like her like Japanese name during like the colonial period. And I felt really nauseous writing. But anyways, so I feel like her chosen name is like a North Star to me. So I would never forget where my paternal family created a new life in the city. She told me how in the past in the apartment complex right across the street where some of my family members lived. 10 families would share one spigot for their water supply. Although the area where my family lives is still a low-income neighborhood, so much has changed through gentrification and urbanization. Small houses are surrounded by huge buildings of hotels, office buildings, and cafes for cryptocurrency. Houses that have stories living in the cracks and walls with over 10 coatings of paint hidden in a sky now staked with skyscrapers. So I kind of wrote my grandma's name on the right of the slide, kind of like using like a North Star symbol, the 8-pointed star, in Korean. And on the right is like the subway thingy of Chungmuro Station. And then next slide, please. So that's my grandma. She's really cute. She's so popular in her neighborhood. Like everybody knows her. She talks to everyone in the neighborhood. Yeah, so next slide. This summer of 2021, still in the era of COVID, I visited my dad mostly to see my little sister. We went out to a nearby stream to dip our feet and play in the water. While we were walking, I plucked a couple of purple clover flowers and showed my sister what dad showed me when I was her age. My little sister is only 9 years old. I asked her if dad ever showed this to her, and she told me he never did. I felt that dad had, over the years, distanced himself from his former country life and became fully assimilated into urbanity, with the exception of his ability to nap anywhere in any given time. So this is an image of my dad napping that I took. I just put like this bear on him. Next slide, please. Coming back to Korea almost 4 years ago, I had a chance to reconnect with my dad's family that I wasn't allowed to visit because of classism from my mother's family. From spending time with them, I would collect pieces of their stories, their lives I never got to witness or be a part of, the lives I wanted to be a part of, because I idealized their warmth that I only got to experience in passing. I had a chance to go see them after my maternal grandmother passed, when I was old enough to go find them on my own. I was full of fear and longing when I went to go visit them because I felt guilty that I wasn't able to before and that I forgot where exactly they lived. When I finally met my paternal grandmother, we both cried. She embraced me with open arms and tears that ran so deep that I outlived both our lives combined. I still feel like there's so much left to uncover from our relationship and lives, but I guess those things come with time. There's so much I don't know about their lives and vice versa. But now I promise I'll never forget where they live, where they are, and where they come from. The legacy I've inherited that I'm proud of, and remember my grandmother's nickname, Chungmuro Halmoni. So now I'm gonna be talking about my relationship to farming games. I'm really obsessed with them. Just having all these like repetitive actions of just like waking up in the game every day, planting seeds, sowing crops, it gives me a sense of peace. And it's really strange because land is a site of so much oppression for colonized bodies globally. And through farming games, it's turned into a site for play and leisure. But my friend Catherine Tom told me that land is a site of oppression, not the oppressor. And to build our relationship back to land is crucial for our survival. And I believe it is a crucial aspect of re-indigenization. And so I think that like my relationship to farming games is really fascinating in this way where I'm trying to kind of like rebuild my relationship to the land through a digital means. And so the first farming game that I ever played was Harvest Moon DS Cute, which is a farming game simulator that my dad bought me on the Nintendo DS when I was in high school. And so Harvest Moon is a farming simulator RPG produced by Yasuhiro Wada. And basically, like Wada, the creator, he grew up on the countryside on the southern tip of Japan, and he was really reminiscing about his time living in the countryside. And he experienced temporality in three ways: the morning, daytime, and evening. And he kind of wanted to reflect that time scale in the game. And when he first started the game, like it was really unique to the gaming landscape because a lot of the games that existed when Harvest Moon first came out in 1996 was there was mostly just games like where it was like fighting, killing, violence, whatever. And so he wanted to create a game that was more about nurturing and cleaning. And he was actually inspired by the first Zelda game where players had to get a candle and burn down the plants. And Harvest Moon is inherently heteronormative in nature. During the time it was created, it was also but it was also introducing a new form of masculinity within the video game landscape, which I think is really interesting. And the creator, he's not necessarily anti-violence, but he just wanted to kind of like create this like non-violent game. And I think it's really interesting that masculinity through this game is constructed through the act of nurturing, where gender, labor, and relationship to violence versus nonviolence, or violence versus care, is constructed through urban, rural, and cultural factors, with a different type of labor giving us a shifted experience of temporality, subjectivity, objectivity, and relationality. And so this drawing is kind of like a sketch. I need to finish, like I need to paint it and stuff, but I drew like some fanfic kind of deviant art-ish like drawings of like Harvest Moon and Rune Factory. So this is like my my like ideal pairing if I was playing the game. From So like the character on the left is like the player character from the DS Cute series. And then the character on the right is like an NPC. And yeah, so next slide. So this is a photo of my uncle washing dishes. Um I had like a period of time where I was just like documenting like my like cis men family members just doing domestic activities because they didn't do that before like 10 years ago. But because like because of how feminism has been changing Korea, and like a lot of like the dialogue around gender is changing a lot of things, like they started to take on more domestic tasks. And so I was just like, we should make this more of a thing. Um yeah, and then Next slide, please. And so I think Wada's romanticization of rural life is really interesting because I think that like I can really resonate with that too. Like, and I think that if I were to reconnect with land IRL, like I know that my family would react in a way where they would just be like, why the fuck are you trying to do anything with the land? Like when we've tried our entire lives to like get you out of that life, you know? And it's just like being in relationship to land is just means so much like struggle, poverty, the weight of like Korean classism, feudalism, American imperialism, and Japanese colonialism. So yeah, it's like really sad. But I'm trying to reconnect. And so the English name of the game Harvest Moon comes from the localization team from Natsume. It's its day and fall when day and night are almost equal lengths of time, when farmers can continue to harvest crops late into the night by the light of the full moon. And also during the harvest moon in Korea and also in like a couple of different Asian cultures, there's like the celebration of the Mid-Autumn Festival, which is like the autumnal equinox. Like it just passed, and in Korean it's called Chuseok, and it's a really important time. Like it's like how people celebrate Halloween here, where the veils of like the spirit realm and like this material realm is very thin. And so there's a lot of like worshiping of like ancestors, um and kind of like people do like 제사 during this period. And I kind of wrote like a poem about like spending Chuseok with my family, but it's like in Korean. And um yeah, I don't want to read it right now because yeah, I mean, I'm going way over time. Anyways, next slide, please. And so like during Chuseok, there's like in the past, like people, like a lot of like women would do this dance called 강강술래. Thank you, Sama. Where like they would dance in like the circle. Like my grandma told me like when she was younger in Jeollanam-do, like she would dance for hours. Like they would literally dance this dance for like hours under the moon, like and just go around in a circle, like singing 강강술래. Like they'd be like 강강술래, and like they would just like hold each other's hands and just like go around in a circle. Um, and yeah, I think it's so beautiful. But basically, like the song was also like um made like in for like Korean liberation from Japanese colonialism. So it has a lot of like anti-colonial like um roots. And we also eat songpyeon during Chuseok. Next slide, please. And my grandma, like back in the day, like when people just didn't have like fabric to buy in the markets, like they would create their own. Like my grandma told me how she made her own hanbok, like using a loom and stuff. And so I tried to recreate that scene because she's just like, I begged her to like teach me how to use the loom, and she was just like, no, I would never. It's too much labor. And next slide, please. So she would like cut the fabric and use these tools to like weave her own like fabric. And my aunt described it as like the most beautiful piece of clothing that she ever seen. And next slide, please. And she made this like beautiful hanbok, and I just like imagined it being like made of like stars and like the moon and everything that's beautiful in this world. But that's just my romanticization of it. I actually never seen this hanbok because my grandma, next slide, please. She just made it into like a pair of pants because she was just like, no one wears hanbok anymore, so I'm just gonna make like regular pants with it. And then, yeah, it's just so sad, you know. There's just like a sense of loss where it's like, yes, like you struggled so hard in your time to like make these clothes, but I feel like the relationship that you build with the materials and the fact like how it changes our relationship to the object itself like is so different from how things are now. Next slide, please. And so yeah, so back to Rune Factory and Harvest Moon. I mean, it's really like there's a lot of like fucked up things about it. Like there's like anti-blackness and like, you know, anti-indigeneity. And there's also Shinto references, and Shinto can be linked with like reinforcing feudalism in Japan. And it can be really sexist too. Like there's a whole bunch of like gender role stuff in the games that's like fucked up. But then there's like interesting like game game aspects where like some of the games are about like anti-gentrification, where like they're trying to figure out like, oh, like how do we save this village from like this like city building like a factory or like a corporation or whatever. And then like Harvest Moon DSQ's Japanese version is the only game in the history of the series to have lesbian marriage. And it's called the best friend system, which is really fucked up. But basically it's like lesbian marriage where you get to live with your lover and have a baby with them too. And it was removed from the North American version. And basically, like the dismissal of lesbian relationships by calling it like the best friend system dates back to the beginning of Class S or S-Kankei, like genre, which is a term used to describe passionate and perhaps like sexual relationships between girls. And next slide, please. Nobuko Yoshia, who I drew here, she's a pioneer in Japanese lesbian literature, and she lived like a openly lesbian relationship, and she started this genre of literature. And even though she has like a really amazing body of work of lesbian literature during her time, heteronormative culture unfortunately uses friendship to dismiss lesbian relationships by seeing it as a phase that girls go through. Um, and yeah, so there's a lot of other like um, kind of like queer history in the series. Like there's a non-binary, possibly non-binary character in Harvest Moon Magical Melody, where the player's rival is named Jamie, and they're never gendered until they like if you marry that character, like then they're called a good-looking boy or pretty girl as like the opposite of the player. But then after that, they're never gendered again, and they like make another appearance in like another game in the series. And in 2013, there was a fan-made True Love Edition mod that was made for Harvest Moon Friends from Mineral Town and More Friends from Mineral Town, where the mod changed the gender of the characters in the game, allowing players to engage in same gender relationships. And so this became so popular that that the creators wanted to create a version for Harvest Moon Dia Sunshine Islands for it. And then Stardew Valley also has like same gender marriage, which is, and it's like an indie like farming game that was created by like someone else. And with the Rune Factory series, it was started by Harvest Moon DS lead developer Yoshifumi Hashimoto. And basically it was supposed to like celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Harvest Moon series, but then it kind of like took a life of its own after it gained a lot of popularity. And then yeah, so I think that like farming games like inherently are like capitalistic and like extractive, like it's based on this extractive loop. But I think it would be interesting to see a game where it's not like that, where farming, like kind of like seeing like models of like farming that isn't scalable, but rather for survival and creating a relationship to the earth. And also as like a relationship to the cycles of life and death. And also like seeing like peasant uprisings all over the world where people occupy land that capitalists leave to waste, reviving it with community and interdependent relationships with the land, I think would be really interesting. And so next slide, please. Okay, this is getting really long. So this is Kim Ha-rim, which is like she's like the first Korean communist. Next slide. And I was also researching like land projects, and Soul Fire Farm came up, and they have this term called food apartheid. And basically like Soul Fire Farm is an Afro-Indigenous centered community farm that's committed to uprooting racism and ceding sovereignty in the food system. And it was started by Leah Penningham and Jonah Vital Wolf. And basically they use this term food apartheid as a way to describe a human created food system based on race. So I think their work is super interesting and dope. And next slide, please. And so I also like interviewed my dad about his childhood. Like he used to sell like newspapers, sweet potatoes, silkworms on the street, like ever since he was like 9. And next slide. And he used to carry like a bunch of vegetables and fresh produce, like, and he would walk like a 12-kilometer distance with this like wheelbarrow as like this child with all these like fresh produce. Next slide. Like these kinds of produce like pumpkin, green onion, cucumbers. Next slide. And this is my dad. He's just a very silly person. Like I think this photo really describes him well because he's wearing like a knockoff like one piece t-shirt that says like one pitch, and he's just like smiling. And yeah, he used to be a communist when he was like my age, but now he's like not. And yeah, he was involved in like the student movement and stuff. And yeah, okay, I'm really running over time, so I'm sorry. Next slide. So yeah, thank you so much. Last slide is basically my contact info if anyone would want to contact me. Thank you. Sorry, that was super long.
No, you're good. Yeah. So thank you so much for that. I like also have thought a ton about farming games in like this kind of context. Probably with like less personal stake in it, right? But like it is one of those games, those genres that's like there's so much to unpack there that those kinds of games rarely do the legwork too, you know. And yeah, we've talked about this, but yeah, just for the stream. So yeah, Sam, how's chat doing? Because again, I'm not looking at chat.
Yeah, chat's going well. No questions though.
Okay. Yeah, if you have questions, feel free to post them, or like, you know, I think we have put all of y'all like your Twitters on Twitter, so maybe you could reach out that way if something comes up like after the fact or whatever. But yeah, this has been it. Thanks again to all of our really amazing residents. Y'all did super great work, and I'm very happy that I got to work with y'all. And again, thanks to Max Neely-Cohen. I'm not sure if he's in chat or anything like that, or watching, but who helped us fund this. This would not have been possible without a generous contribution from him. And yeah, I think that's it from me. Anyone else have any final words or anything like that y'all want to say? I'm so bad at ending things. It's obnoxious. So yeah, I think I'm gonna kill the stream. Thanks. Yeah, thanks
Thank you.
everyone for watching.
Thank you.
Organizing this
Yeah,
on
of
our
course.
behalf.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, guys.
Take care.
Bye.
Stay safe.
Goodbye.
Rest, etc.
Love your work. Thank you so much for sharing.
Y'all did it. Congrats.